Okay, good morning, everyone. Today we'll deal with a new lesson which is titled The Dog of Tithwal, written by Saadat Hasan Manto. Uh, and this belongs to the second module. The second module is about South Asian identities. We talked about the first module, diasporic identities. We talked about diasporic writers and we discussed their writings. Now we've got, this is the second module, which is titled South Asian Identities. And this collection is unique because I think there are 4 lessons in this, and it's a very unique collection because it speaks about the experience of partition, and it is like, it speaks about the feelings and the emotions of people in South Asian regions, and it also reflects the myths, the legends of the region. It also speaks about the conflicts, all the 4 lessons. And we can see, the especially this first one, the dog of Tethwal, which is like written and by Saadat Hasan Manto. And when we talk about this particular story, The Dog of Tethwal, it was published in the 1987 collection of Manto's stories titled Kingdom's End and Other Stories, right? And it was basically the inspiration for this was the partition of India after the Indian independence in 1947. And see, this was translated into English by Khalid Hassan, Tethwal Ka Kutta, that is how it was written. So the dog of Tethwal. And this was this was written by Saadat Hasan Manto because he understood the feelings of the people who went through this partition. So we know that after Indian independence, there was this partition, and this partition split Hindustan into Muslim Pakistan, and we would say secular India, but the secular India was Hindu dominated and Hindu ruled. And what happened was there was this violent upheaval as a result of this partition. So when the national boundaries were redrawn, India cut through the center of Pakistan. So it was like, as though a nation divided. So Muslims and Hindus became very hostile to each other. That Muslims who found themselves living in India and Hindus who found themselves living in Pakistan were suddenly aliens in their own homes. So when the partition took place, if you were a Muslim and you lived in the so-called India, you felt so alienated because you found yourself surrounded by this Hindu-dominated ideology. Right. And so, they always had this kind of feeling that Muslims should go to Pakistan and Hindus from Pakistan should come to India. But unfortunately, people who lived in a particular region for years together, all of a sudden they found themselves, being harassed, and they were kind of hounded. And it was as though people were telling them to move to another place and set up their home there because this was no longer their home. So you have to imagine the kind of feelings that they went through. Suppose you're living in this particular area of Kerala for so many years, and this is your home. You have everything here. Your house is here, your family is here, your business is here, your friends are here. And all of a sudden, there's a partition and people say, so this is Hindu dominated, and so you have to go to the other area which is Christian dominated, so you cannot be here. And they ask you to move to another place. Then what happens is, you feel so displaced because all of a sudden the place that you've called home becomes so alien to you. This is what happened to them also. You'll get a better idea of this conflict when you read Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan. It's a very interesting novel. It talks about how people were up at arms against each other just on the basis of religion. They became so hostile to each other. Right? And they found that in Pakistan, the Muslims living in India found themselves aliens in India. They had been living there for ages. So suddenly what happened, the Hindustan becomes 2 different parts, becomes 2 different countries. Right? And they found themselves as aliens in their own homes. They felt that they were being very coldly tolerated. They were robbed, raped, attacked, murdered. There was total, utter chaos. And there were this refugee moving from one part of the Hindustan to the other part, because now Hindustan had become two different parts, India and Pakistan. So there was total chaos. As the 16 million, more than 16 million refugees, they ran for their life to a nation where they would find safety. So Muslims from India, they ran to Pakistan, and Hindus from Pakistan, they ran to India, and on the way, some of them were killed, many of them were robbed, raped, attacked, murdered. It was terrible. Actually, I don't think you know much about it, but if you read Train to Pakistan, you'll get a very good idea of what happened. So there was total violence, and I think almost 500,000 people died in 1947 alone. And the governments of the newly drawn nations, that's India and Pakistan, they were not able to control this violence. They also went into turmoil, right? And then what happened in 1948? There was this war over territorial boundaries. Principally, the question was which nation would govern Kashmir, right? And then the war spread all across the frontier. And from then on, it has been always, at loggerheads with each other, India and Pakistan. And this tragedy is what Saadat Hasan Manto has brought out in Tithwal Ka Kutta, or the dog of Tithwal, right? So this was the impetus for the story. So this particular story gives us a small view, a microcosmic view of the struggle, the hateful struggle, right? So when you look at this place, where this Tithwal, the border, you see that it's a place of beautiful natural, natural beauty is there. It abounds in natural beauty, right? And natural beauty continues in harmony in the story setting also, set in a mountainous area, and natural beauty is there throughout. But you see the Indian and the Pakistani soldiers facing each other at the border. There's no peace. They cannot be at peace. Right? So they're always expressing their frustration at each other. They can't kill each other, but they keep on terrorizing each other. And it's a kind of frustration being there at the border. And here you see this dog, the kutta, the dog that comes. It's a friendly dog looking for companionship. But what happens is the leaders of the two groups, the Indian camp and the Pakistani camp, they terrorize this dog. They kill this friendly dog, right? And dog is just looking for companionship. So this is actually a kind of view of what is happening within both the countries, right? So that is what the story is all about. We'll discuss the story in detail. Now, when you read about Saadat Hasan Manto, Saadat, he was born in India, right? He was he was I would say an Urdu writer. And Urdu was the primary language of Muslims in Pakistan and northern India. Now it's the official language of Pakistan, right? And his works have been translated into many languages, including English. And he's best known for his short stories. And Saadat Hasan Manto was one person who was always choosing controversial topics. And he was always, always in the eye of a storm. That is, he was always receiving public disapproval. Right? And even, there's two of his stories. One is Colder Than Ice, and the other one is The Return. They were both deemed indecent by the Pakistani censors. I think he was also prosecuted for obscenity, right? Because he was always writing on controversial topics. And he was a very dedicated student, but he dropped out of college in between, and he became the editor of a magazine called Maisawir, and later on he joined the part of the progressive writers movement in Urdu literature. And this movement was actually formed by a group of Indian students in 1935 who were urging political and social revolution. So Manto would use his very, very kind of, I would say, matter-of-fact style to portray the problems of what he considered to be the problems of a materialistic world, right? So, and he was basically writing about the suffering caused in 1947 due to the partition of Hindustan into India and Pakistan, right? So this particular story is about that. And he writes about this because he is one person who understood the pain of partition, because he was living in Bombay. He loved Bombay. at the time of the partition, he was living in Bombay. And he was a well-known Muslim, right? And when Hindustan became partitioned, it was partitioned into India and Pakistan, he felt, very uncomfortable in the Hindu India, right? And he had to move to Pakistan because I told you they felt alienated in their own homes. So because he was a Muslim, he moved to Pakistan in 1948, right? But he was never at home in Pakistan. He missed India because he was an Indian, and especially Bombay, he really missed Bombay, right? So that is why he has written stories about the pain of partition, because he has understood the pain of partition. And he has written plays, radio scripts, and as I said, he's mainly known for his short stories, around 250 short stories, right? And he's also written film scripts. And he was a person who was so much into writing and who was so much involved in the problems of society that he found his solace or some kind of relief in alcohol. And because he drank so much, he had liver cirrhosis, and he died when he was 42, I think, very young, died very young. And people would say that he actually brought on his death by himself because of his drinking. So that is Saadat Hasan Manto for you, the writer of this book, The Dog of Tithwal. And this, as I said, it's a satirical writing, a satire about a stray dog. A stray dog, but a very friendly dog who is caught in the crossfire of the partition. So we see the story opens on a very pristine, very beautiful landscape with sweet smelling flowers, and you have soldiers singing songs, drinking tea. So what happens is there's a stray dog that comes in, and the stray dog disrupts the general peace with its barking. So, we're going to understand we're going to read and kind of comprehend what this stray dog is all about. It is, when we read about the identity of this stray dog, what does the stray dog represent? So it can stand as an analogy for the millions of families that were made homeless by this partition. So it can be, it can be an analogy, or it can stand for this, for those people who lost their homes. And the trauma that the dog faced at the hands of these two camp soldiers is also, the kind of words that are exchanged. It also reveals that the trauma that people underwent when Hindustan was partitioned, right? So all the years, people who are living in the so-called Indian part and who are Muslims, all of a sudden they were called as foreigners. You have to understand the irony of that and the kind of trauma that people would have undergone, right? People, all the years, like from the time you were born, you're living in a particular area, and just because you are a Muslim or just because your religion is different, you are suddenly termed as a foreigner. Similarly, it was the same case with people who lived in Pakistan and who were Hindus. Initially, it was just one area. Then there was this partition, cutting leave their home. So all these you're saying Pakistani, Muslim, Hindu, and all that kind of words that were thrown against these people were very traumatic words. That is what is reflected here. So identity in this particular story is determined and I would say defined by your belonging to a particular nation. So your identity, it depends on which nation depends on the nation to which you belong. So it is all dependent on your religion, right? So that is what we see here. So we get to know a lot of readings. We get to have a lot of readings when we read the story in depth. So we'll discuss about the different readings of the story. We'll just read the story. I'll just read the story and I'll try to. It's not a very difficult one, but it's a very interesting one. So you can just listen to me, or you can take your text and open it to the page 32. So it goes on like this. For some time now, the two sides have been entrenched in their positions on the front, Over the course of a day, the sound of firing could be heard some 10 or 12 times from either side, but no human cry ever accompanied its report. So every day you could hear firing. The weather was extremely agreeable. It was beautiful. The air infused with the scent of wild flowers, and on the heights and slopes of the hills, nature, oblivious to the sound of war, went busily about her duties. The birds squalled, the flowers bloomed, and hovering drowsily over them in their same old way, the slow moving honeybees sucked out their nectar. So, when you look at this, when you look at the beginning of the story, or you see how the story commences, you see that you have Indian and Pakistani soldiers entrenched in their positions along the borders in a mountainous area, right? So there are, no air forces involved. It's heavy artillery is also not there. Sound of firing could be heard. And there was no human cry. That means there was no heavy artillery. There was no battle. It was more of a standoff. But the peace of the mountains, it pervades in spite of the tension that is brewing in the air. So you see the flowers in bloom, you see the birds singing, the clouds scudding lazily across the skies. So, this nature is a symphony that plays beautifully. And, and men are there, they have their discordant notes on their guns, with their guns, right? So there's a comparison comparison of nature to a symphony that plays beautifully, and men with their guns, the discordant notes. That's what he says. Sound of firing could be heard 10 or 12 times from either side. So we have this kind of very rough notes. You say discordant notes. There's no kind of melody in that, in the report of the guns. When the sound of firing ran through the hills, the squalling birds gave a start and took flight. Their hearing hurt as if a hand had struck some discordant note. The end of September gently embraced the beginning of October. It seemed as if the heat and cold were being seamlessly reconciled to each other, and over clear blue skies, like bits of carded cotton or white bud rose, light feathery clouds scudded by. After a while, the soldiers of both sides grew vexed that no decisive result had presented itself. When at length they tired of lying about, they felt a desire to make themselves heard. That no one was listening was unimportant. They would remain flat or face down on the stony ground, and on receiving the order, fire once or twice into the air. So what happens? The men are bored. It's a standoff. There's no battle. So they're just lying on their sides, waiting for orders. When you get orders, you fire. Whether you are heard, whether people listen to you, whether people hear you, is not at all a kind of consideration for them. They are just ordered and they just follow orders. There's nothing beyond that. Both fronts were in very secure places. The bullets would come singing at full speed, collide against the rock face, and be extinguished. The two hills on which the front stood were of similar height. Between them lay a valley over whose green-clad breast a runnel ran, writhing over it like a snake. There was no danger from airplanes. Neither side possessed cannons. That's what I said. There wasn't any, heavy artillery that was involved, right? So people were like kind of, it was just a standoff. They were just simply firing. At night, silence prevailed. Though the soldiers of both sides could occasionally hear someone's laughter at some bit of fun, or else the song of another who, having caught the mood, would disturb the quiet of the night. And from behind, when a returning echo was heard, it was as if the mountains were learning a lesson by rote. So these people were bored. The soldiers, the Indian soldiers and the Pakistani soldiers were bored. And they were waiting there from day to night, every day, counting days. And month after month passed by. And what happened is, at night there would be total silence except for some laughter somewhere. And sometimes, you would hear some of these soldiers sing songs and the mountains would echo the songs. A round of tea had ended. In stone stoves, in light pieces of pine coal had practically gone cold. The skies were clear and there was a chill in the air. It was free of the smell of flowers, as if they too had closed their perfume boxes for the night. As a result, the atmosphere was infused with the sweat of pine resin, which was not unpleasant. So at night, even the stubs that they had built, and the coals and the stubs, they all become very cold. Because they had finished making their food and the skies were very clear and this air was cool and there was this sweet smell of pine trees and the flowers had kind of they don't they didn't give out any smell at night or any fragrance at night, but you could smell the pine resin or the pine trees. Everyone, wrapped in blankets, lay asleep, though all were ready any minute to rise, fight, and die. So this is what. So they were all sleeping, but at the first order, they would jump up, and they would rise, they would fight, and they were ready to die also, give their lives for their country. Corporal Hanam Singh, you get the first person here. Corporal Hanam Singh was on patrol. When the hour in his Rapscope watch struck 2, he awoke Ganda Singh and installed him in his station. He wanted very much to sleep, but on closing his eyes, found it as far from him as the stars of the sky. Lying flat on his back, he wobbled softly. Bring me a pair of star-spangled shoes. Yes, star-spangled. Hanam Singh, oh darling, should it cost you your buffalo? So he's singing a song, right? And he was not able to sleep. On all sides, Hanam Singh could see star-spangled shoes scattered over the sky and twinkling softly. So when he was lying on his back, he looked up at the sky and he saw the star-spangled sky. So he sings a song, right? So we see that the action begins at the Indian camp. And Hanam Singh was on night duty. And at 2 o'clock, he wakes the next person, Ganda Singh. And Ganda Singh takes over the watch. And, Hanam Singh, what does Hanam Singh do? He lies down. He wants to sleep, but he's not able to sing. So he sings he's not able to sleep. So he sings a romantic song about a pair of shoes with stars on them, right? And see, again, he keeps on singing. On all sides, Hanam Singh could see star-spangled shoes scattered over the sky and twinkling softly. Then star-spangled shoes, I'll bring you, yes, star-spangled, Hanam Kaur, oh darling, should it cost me my buffalo, right? So, this people, especially Punjabis, they have the title Sing for males and Kaur for females. So he says Hanam Kaur. So he's singing a very romantic song telling that he's going to bring a pair of star-spangled shoes for his lady love, Hanam Kaur, right? He smiled and knowing that sleep would not come, he woke the others. The thought of a woman had excited his mind. He was in the mood to make inane conversation through which he might relive his feeling for Hanam Kaur, right? So, he's not able to sleep. So he wakes the others. There's Ganda Singh is already on duty. Then there's another Banta Singh. He calls him. He wakes all of them because he's like thinking about Hanam Kaur and he's not able to sleep because these men have been away from home for a long time, away from the comfort of a woman's arms. So they're feeling quite empty. So he's not able to sleep also, and they feel sadness, right? And then they start talking. Talk did begin, but it was abrupt and disjointed. Banta Singh, who was the youngest among them and had the best voice, sat to one side as the others chatted, yawning now and then. After a while, Banta Singh, in his mournful voice, began singing Heer and Ranja, right? Heer and Ranja, the eternal love story. Heer said, the yogi lied, no one pacifies an aggrieved lover. I searched and searched, but found no one who could call back the departed. A hawk lost crane to the crow. Look, does he lament or not? Give not to those who suffer fondly. These are all songs, And then he sings, a moment later, he sang Ranja's reply to Heer's words. So you have to read about Heer and Ranja. It's an eternal love story, a couple who loved each other to death. So then he sings, so he's like, now he's pretending to be Heer singing to Ranja, then he pretends to be Ranja singing back to Heer. So what happens is the soldiers are basically sad and they sing songs about love, about tragedy. Here and Raja's story is a story of tragedy, right? How they loved each other, but how they died in the end because their love was not requited. So it's a story about love. It's a story about tragedy, and they sing about love and tragedy, and they feel sadness creeping over them because they are reminded that life should be about love than about war. They are spending their lives here, sitting on the borders, away from their homes, away from their women. And what are they doing? They're just simply firing. There's no action also. Simply firing shots, and they're not having a life. Life should be enjoyed. So these people actually lament that. So that is why they sing all these mournful songs or stories about unrequited love or loves which have become tragedies. So that is what happens there. So we'll just stop there for now. I'll continue in the next class. Do you have any questions with regard to this? Any